I was standing by the water cooler when I overheard Vance boasting about his new beach house, openly bragging, hands waving everywhere, his voice just loud enough for everyone to hear while 20 of us had just been told to clear out our desks. 20 people with families and mortgages and sick parents and student loans. I remember the paper cup collapsing in my grip, water running down my wrist and over my watch. The same watch my dad gave me when I graduated. Always be on time for what matters, he'd said, and what mattered in that moment was that Vice President Vance Mercer had just cut 20 positions, including mine, while his pet project had burned through $500,000. $500,000 with nothing to show for it. Nothing except, apparently, a down payment on his Malibu dream house. What made it worse? I'm the one who designed the financial tracking system that proved his project was failing, the one who built the dashboard showing the money bleeding month after month, the one who flagged it, and the one who got fired for budget constraints. I stood there, water dripping from my fingers as his eyes locked with mine across the break room, and he smiled, actually smiled, then had the nerve to wink before turning back to his audience of yes men. That's when I decided I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to burn his perfect world to the ground. Sorry, I should introduce myself. I'm Talia Reeves, 32, Senior Systems Analyst. Well, former Senior Systems Analyst as of last Friday. Everyone says I'm the steady one, the friend who thinks before she speaks, who plans everything, who never causes trouble, the responsible one, the dependable one. But they don't know this side of me. I didn't either until Vance pushed me there. Honestly, I can't believe I'm actually doing this, telling this story. But after everything that's happened, I feel like people need to hear it. If you're watching this, wherever you are, drop a comment letting me know where you're from. I'm curious how far this story travels. And if anything like this has happened to you, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, because trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. I never wanted to work at that company. It was one of those mid-sized tech firms that claimed to be all about innovation and disruption, but was really just a boys' club with ping pong tables and kombucha on tap. I took the job because the pay was decent and my mom's medical bills weren't paying themselves. From day one, Vance had his eye on me, not in a sexual harassment way. That would have been too obvious, too actionable, but in a quieter, subtler way. He'd call on me in meetings to explain my analysis, then cut me off halfway through, take my ideas, repackage them, and present them as his own. Classic stuff, really. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. But I needed the job, so I smiled through it, worked harder, stayed later, documented everything. Then came Phoenix. That's what Vance called his pet project. This supposedly revolutionary client management system that was going to change everything. The board gave him $500,000 and 12 months to deliver, and he assembled his dream team. All men, all from prestigious universities, all with the right connections, while I wasn't invited to a single planning meeting. 8 months in, our quarterly numbers weren't looking great, and the CFO asked me to build a financial tracking system for all current projects. When I got to Phoenix, things didn't line up. Expenses were categorized oddly, deliverables were vague, milestones kept shifting, so I pulled an all-nighter mapping everything out. By morning, I had my answer. Phoenix was a disaster. At the current burn rate, they'd blow through the budget with nothing functional to show for it. I triple-checked my analysis, prepared my presentation, and scheduled a meeting with my direct supervisor, Lorelei. She listened closely, studied my charts, and sighed. "This is concerning, Talia. Really concerning. I'll take it to Vance." 2 days later, she came to my desk, her face drained of color. Vance says, "Your analysis is flawed." He says, "You don't understand the complexities of Phoenix. Did you show him my dashboard?" The numbers speak for themselves. She wouldn't meet my eyes. He's the VP, Talia. He has the board's confidence. That night, I made a decision. I started copying documents, screenshots, email trails. I set up an anonymous cloud account and uploaded everything: every expense report, every missed deadline, every revised projection. I documented conversations, wrote notes after meetings. For 6 months, I built my case in silence, all while watching Phoenix crash and burn in slow motion. The company's stock began to slip. Whispers of budget cuts filled the hallways. That's when I uncovered Vance's solution. Cut 20 positions from departments unrelated to Phoenix, call it strategic restructuring, and use the freed-up salary budget to cover Phoenix's overruns. My position was on that list, so were 19 others, mostly women, mostly people of color, mostly those who didn't play golf with Vance on Sundays. The announcement came on a Friday afternoon. At 3 o'clock, a company-wide email landed in everyone's inbox, blunt and cold. Then came the individual meetings with HR. Mine was set for 4:15. I sat across from Heather from Human Resources. She didn't say much. Couldn't even look at me. Instead, she slid the severance package across the table with both hands, like it weighed more than it should. 2 weeks' pay for every year of service, she said softly, and a non-disclosure agreement. We'll need you to sign before receiving any benefits. I scanned the NDA. It was airtight. I couldn't discuss the terms of my separation. I couldn't criticize the company or its leadership. I couldn't reveal any proprietary information about internal projects, including Phoenix. What if I don't sign? I asked. Heather finally met my gaze. Then no severance, no recommendation letters, and potential legal action if you violate confidentiality in any way. I nodded, took the papers, and said I'd think about it over the weekend. Then I went back to my desk and packed my plants and photos while my now former co-workers awkwardly avoided eye contact. That's when I overheard Vance by the water cooler talking about his beach house. That weekend, I didn't call my mom. I didn't tell my friends. I sat in my apartment surrounded by printouts, sticky notes, and my laptop, assembling the case that would destroy Vance Mercer. Monday morning, I should have been applying for jobs. Instead, I was outside board member Imani Washington's favorite coffee shop, not stalking, researching. I knew from company events that she arrived every morning at 7:30 for her almond milk latte. I knew she sat at the corner table and spent 30 minutes reviewing her day before heading to her first meeting. I knew she was the only board member who had ever questioned Vance's methods. I ordered the same drink and approached her table. Miss Washington, I'm Talia Reeves. Until Friday, I was senior systems analyst at the company. She looked up, confused, but not dismissive. You were part of the layoffs. Yes. May I sit for just 2 minutes? Then I'll never bother you again. She gestured to the chair across from her. I placed a sealed envelope on the table. Inside is a USB drive with documented evidence that Phoenix has burned through its entire budget with no viable product. There's also proof that Vance Mercer deliberately misled the board about its progress and used the recent layoffs to cover the financial shortfall. Her expression didn't change, but her hand froze halfway to her cup. I haven't signed the NDA, I continued. I'm not asking for my job back. I'm not asking for anything except that you look at the evidence. What you do with it afterward is your decision. She studied my face. Why are you doing this, Ms. Reeves? I thought about the 19 other people who'd lost their jobs, about Daria in accounting who was pregnant with her first child, about Marcus in customer support who was putting his brother through college. Because it's right, I said simply, and because someone like Vance Mercer shouldn't be allowed to fail upward while the rest of us fall. I stood to leave. She didn't touch the envelope. Ms. Reeves, she called as I reached the door. I can't promise anything. I know, but now you can't say you didn't know either. I spent the next week in a strange kind of limbo, applying for jobs during the day, obsessively checking my email at night. No word from Imani, Washington. No unusual activity on the company's social media. Nothing at all. Then Wednesday night, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, Miss Reeves. Imani Washington's voice was clipped, professional. There's a board meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Your presence is requested. My heart slammed against my ribs. In what capacity? As a witness. The information you provided has raised significant concerns. We'd like you to walk the board through your findings. I tightened my grip on the phone. Will Vance Mercer be there? A pause. Yes. All senior leadership will be present. This was it. The moment I'd either been waiting for, or the elaborate setup for my complete professional destruction. It could go either way. I'll be there, I said. I didn't sleep that night. I rehearsed my presentation, anticipated every possible question and objection. By morning, my eyes were red-rimmed but focused. I put on my sharpest suit, charcoal gray with a subtle pinstripe, and my dad's watch. Always be on time for what matters. The security guard did a double take when I walked into the lobby. Ms. Reeves, I have a meeting with the board, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. He checked his list, then nodded. 14th floor. They're expecting you. The elevator ride felt endless. With each floor, I questioned myself. Was I doing this for justice or revenge? For the others who lost their jobs or for my wounded pride? Did it matter if the outcome was the same? The doors opened to reveal Imani Washington waiting for me. They're assembled, she said, without preamble. You'll have 15 minutes to present. Then they'll ask questions. Vance has been told this is a project review. I nodded, clutching my portfolio. Has he seen the evidence? Not yet. Her expression was unreadable. That's your job. She led me into the boardroom, all glass and mahogany and quiet power. 12 people sat around the table, including Vance. He froze mid-sentence when he saw me, confusion quickly hardening into something else. What is this? He asked, looking at the chairperson. Not me, as if I wasn't worth addressing directly. Ms. Reeves has some information about Project Phoenix the board needs to hear, Imani said, gesturing for me to take the empty seat at the presentation end of the table. I connected my laptop to the display system, acutely aware of Vance's eyes boring into me. The room went silent as my opening slide appeared. Project Phoenix, Financial Analysis and Timeline. Thank you for this opportunity, I began, my voice finding its footing. I've been asked to present my findings regarding Project Phoenix's budget allocation, expenditures, and deliverables over the past 12 months. I clicked to the next slide, a simple graph showing projected budget versus actual spend, with a glaring gap between promised deliverables and reality. As you can see, Phoenix has exceeded its budget by 32%, while achieving only 15% of its stated goals. Vance shifted in his chair. This is absurd. Where are you getting these numbers? I met his gaze directly. From the company's own financial system, Mr. Mercer, the same system I designed at your request. For the next 12 minutes, I laid out everything. The missing funds, the falsified progress reports, the diverted resources. With each slide, the air in the room grew heavier. Then I reached the final section. In March, when it became clear that Phoenix would not meet its goals within budget, alternative funding was pursued, and it came in the form of department cuts. I displayed the list of eliminated positions alongside their salaries, then overlaid it with Phoenix's budget shortfall. The numbers lined up almost perfectly. 20 people lost their jobs not because of company-wide financial necessity, but to cover the failure of a single project. The chairperson leaned forward. These are serious allegations, Ms. Reeves. Do you have documentation to support all of this? I nodded and handed folders to each board member. Everything is sourced from internal systems, emails, and meeting notes. I've included the original files and their locations on the company servers for verification. Vance's face went from red to pale. This is a vindictive attack from a disgruntled former employee. She's violating her NDA. I never signed it, I interrupted evenly, and every document here was obtained while I was still employed as part of my official duties tracking project finances. The board members flipped through the folders, their expressions darkening. The CFO looked physically sick. "Ms. Reeves," the chairperson said after a long silence, "would you please wait outside while we discuss this matter?" I gathered my things and walked out, my legs somehow holding me up despite feeling like water. In the anteroom, I sank into a chair and finally let myself shake. 45 minutes passed before the door opened again. Imani Washington motioned for me to return. The room had changed. Vance was no longer seated at the table but standing against the wall, his attorney beside him. Several board members wouldn't meet my eyes. The chairperson cleared his throat. "Ms. Reeves, the board has reviewed your evidence and finds it compelling. We're initiating a formal investigation into Project Phoenix and the recent restructuring decisions." I nodded, waiting. "Mr. Mercer has been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of this investigation. We owe you our gratitude for bringing this to our attention." Vance made a strangled sound as his attorney whispered to him. "What about the people who lost their jobs?" I asked, unwilling to accept gratitude while 19 others were still unemployed. The chairperson and CFO exchanged glances. "That will be part of our review," the CFO said carefully. "If positions were eliminated improperly, we'll need to address that." Not good enough. Not even close. "I have one more thing to show you," I said, pulling a final document from my portfolio. "This is a list of the 19 other employees terminated last Friday. Next to each name are their performance reviews, project contributions, and cost-benefit analyses of their roles." I handed it to Imani, who passed it to the chairperson. Reinstating these employees would cost less than the remaining budget allocated to Phoenix, and unlike Phoenix, they've all proven their value to this company. The room fell silent again. I had gone as far as I could. Now it was up to them. The chairperson finally spoke. "Thank you, Ms. Reeves. You've given us much to consider. We may need to contact you as our investigation continues." I recognized a dismissal when I heard one. I gathered my things and headed for the door, passing close to Vance. He didn't look at me, but I heard his words clearly. "You've made a very powerful enemy today." I paused, turned slightly toward him, and replied just as quietly, "No, Vance, I've exposed one." Then I walked out, my dad's watch ticking steadily on my wrist. Always be on time for what matters, and bringing down Vance Mercer's carefully constructed world of privilege and corruption mattered more than anything. But walking out of that boardroom wasn't the end. It was barely the beginning, because what happened next would change everything. Not just for me, not just for Vance, but for every person who'd ever been crushed by someone who believed they were untouchable. Wait until you hear what happened when I reached the elevator. The doors slid open, and there stood Lorelei, my former supervisor. Her eyes widened as she realized I was on the executive floor. "Talia, what are you doing here?" she whispered, glancing nervously down the hallway toward the boardroom. "Just finished a meeting," I said, stepping inside beside her. "How are things in the department?" Her shoulders sagged. "Terrible. Everyone's terrified. Productivity has tanked. Nobody knows who's next." The doors closed, trapping us together. She turned to me, really seeing me for the first time. "You did something, didn't you? I just saw Vance's assistant rushing in with his attorney." I kept my expression neutral. "I showed the board the truth about Phoenix and the layoffs." She grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in. "Talia, do you have any idea what you've done? Vance has friends everywhere. Board members, executives at other companies, investors. He's been in this industry for 20 years. You've been in it for what, 5? He'll destroy you. I gently pulled my arm free. Maybe, but right now, he has bigger problems. When I got home, the adrenaline crash hit hard. I kicked off my heels, collapsed onto the couch, and stared at the ceiling, replaying every second of that meeting. Had I done enough? Too much? Would those 19 people get their jobs back, or would Vance twist this somehow and make me the villain? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. No signature, no explanation needed. My stomach tightened, but I deleted it without replying. I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. That night, my LinkedIn profile exploded with views from executives across the industry. My inbox filled with messages from former colleagues, some supportive, others accusing me of destroying company morale for a personal vendetta. By morning, I found myself locked out of industry networking groups. 3 job interviews I'd lined up were suddenly canceled. A professional reference from my previous job called, awkwardly explaining he couldn't, in good conscience, recommend me anymore. Vance was making good on his threat faster than I'd expected, his reach longer than I'd realized. I called Imani Washington. No answer. I emailed her. No reply. I contacted HR about my final paycheck. Silence. 3 days after the board meeting, a certified letter arrived. Inside was a lawsuit naming me as the defendant, accusing me of corporate espionage, theft of proprietary information, and defamation. The plaintiff, Vance Mercer personally, not the company. The amount he was suing me for, $3 million. I sat on my bathroom floor, the letter shaking in my hands, and finally let myself cry. He was going to win. Even if the case was baseless, even if it was eventually dismissed, the legal fees alone would ruin me. My savings would last maybe 2 months without income. My mom's medical bills kept coming, and now I was apparently unemployable. I had given up everything to do the right thing, and Vance was still going to walk away untouched. Worse, he was going to crush me in the process. That night, my doorbell rang. When I checked the peephole, I saw Daria from accounting, one of the 19, standing there with a pizza box. I opened the door, confused. "Talia, you look awful," she said, pushing past me into the apartment. "When was the last time you ate?" I honestly couldn't remember. She set the pizza on the coffee table and turned to face me. "I heard what you did. We all did." My chest tightened. "I'm sorry it didn't work. He's counterattacking, and I don't think I can stop him." She cut me off. "You stood up when nobody else would. That matters." She pulled out her phone and showed me a group chat with the other 18 laid-off employees, the screen filled with messages of support, resolve, and planning. "We're not letting you fight this alone," Daria said. "Marcus's sister is a lawyer. Aiden's roommate is a journalist. Priya has connections at 3 competing firms. We've all been documenting our experiences with Vance for years." I stared at her, stunned. "But he's suing me for millions. He's blackballing me everywhere." "He's a bully who's never been challenged," she finished, "and bullies don't know what to do when their targets band together." That night changed everything. My living room became headquarters for what we half-jokingly called Operation Phoenix Rising. 19 people with nothing left to lose, plus me. 20 careers Vance had damaged or destroyed. 20 people with different skills, networks, and knowledge, and one shared enemy. Marcus's sister, Zora, the lawyer, reviewed the lawsuit and immediately spotted critical weaknesses. "He's claiming you stole proprietary information, but everything you collected was part of your job responsibilities. He's claiming defamation, but truth is an absolute defense." And he filed this as a personal lawsuit, not a corporate one, which means he can't even argue you violated company confidentiality. "So I'll win?" I asked, hope creeping into my voice. She grimaced. Eventually, maybe. But he knows you can't afford a long legal fight. This isn't about winning for him. It's about draining you until you break. Then we changed the battlefield, Aiden said, who'd worked in strategic communications. Vance filed this personally, which means the company isn't officially backing him. Their legal team isn't protecting him, and that's a mistake. We all looked at him. Corporations hate bad publicity, he continued. They hate it more than losing money, because bad publicity costs them far more in the long run. Right now, they're conducting an internal investigation, probably hoping to keep this quiet. So we don't let them, I said slowly, the realization clicking into place. Exactly, Daria agreed. But we have to be smart, strategic. If we just start shouting, we look like bitter ex-employees. Priya, who'd worked in product development, leaned forward. We flip the narrative. Right now it's angry laid-off workers versus a successful executive. We make it whistleblower exposes corruption, faces retaliation. For 2 weeks, we gathered more evidence, strengthened our case, and built connections. I kept receiving threatening texts. My car was keyed. Someone tried to hack my email. Vance was escalating, getting desperate. Then came our first win. Zora filed a countersuit alleging retaliation against a whistleblower, backed by documentation of the canceled interviews and unexplained professional blacklisting. The judge granted a temporary restraining order barring Vance from contacting me or interfering with my employment prospects. That same day, Aiden's roommate published the first article in a respected industry blog. The headline read, "Whistleblower faces multi-million-dollar lawsuit after exposing mismanaged project that led to layoffs." It didn't name names or companies, careful to avoid legal trouble, but it included enough detail that insiders knew exactly who it was about. It ended with a pointed question. In an era when tech companies claim to value transparency and accountability, what message does it send when those who provide that transparency face personal ruin? The article went viral within industry circles. 2 days later, a larger tech publication picked it up, adding new details and quotes from anonymous sources familiar with the situation. Vance's attorney sent over a settlement offer. If I signed an NDA, admitted wrongdoing, and issued a public apology, he'd drop the lawsuit. I forwarded it to Zora with a single word. No. That weekend, I got another unexpected visitor. Imani Washington stood at my door, looking nothing like the composed board member I remembered. She looked tired, conflicted. "May I come in?" she asked. I hesitated, then stepped aside. "The internal investigation confirmed everything you presented," she said flatly. "The board voted yesterday. Vance has been terminated." Relief washed over me, quickly followed by suspicion. "Why are you telling me this in person? And why now?" After weeks of silence, she sat on my couch, hands tightly clasped. "Because there's more, and it's complicated. The company wants to offer all 20 laid-off employees their jobs back, with back pay and a formal apology." I waited. "They're concerned about the countersuit and the media attention. They want this handled quietly. They want NDAs," I said. She nodded. "And they want the countersuit dropped." I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "So Vance is gone, but everything else gets buried. The corruption, the mismanagement, the targeted layoffs, all swept under the rug so the stock price doesn't suffer." "It's a generous offer, Talia." "It's not about money," I snapped, standing up. "It's about accountability." 20 people had their lives turned upside down. I'm being sued for $3 million and blackballed from my industry, and the company thinks throwing cash at it will make it disappear. Imani looked at me for a long moment. "What do you want, then?" That was the question, wasn't it? What did I actually want? Justice? Yes. Accountability? Absolutely. But also something more. something that ensured this could never happen again. I want structural change, I said finally. I want the company to implement new project oversight protocols so no executive can hide failures behind layoffs again. I want an external audit of all executive projects from the past 3 years. I want diverse hiring panels and transparent promotion criteria. I took a breath and went on. I want a company-wide commitment that whistleblowers will be protected, not punished. And I want Vance's personal lawsuit against me dropped, not settled, dropped. Imani stared at me. You're asking for fundamental changes to how the company operates. Yes, because what happened to us wasn't one bad executive. It was a system that enabled him, and that's what has to change. She stood to leave. I'll present your counteroffer to the board, but I wouldn't get your hopes up. 3 days later, she called. The board had agreed to most of my terms, with modifications and a timeline for implementation. They'd also pressured Vance to drop his personal lawsuit against me. In exchange, we would be offered our old jobs back if we wanted them, sign very limited NDAs covering only specific financial details, and drop the countersuit. I gathered our group in my living room. 20 people, 20 votes. I don't trust them, Marcus said immediately. They're only doing this because we forced their hand. Maybe, Daria countered, but these changes would help everyone still working there, and anyone who comes after us. The debate went on for hours. In the end, we agreed to a modified version of the offer with one crucial addition: an employee-led oversight committee with real authority to review executive decisions. To my surprise, the board accepted. 1 month later, I walked back into the building not as a defeated former employee, but as the newly appointed head of project governance. 19 others returned too, many to better roles than the ones they'd lost. Vance's office was empty, his name scrubbed from the website. Project Phoenix was officially terminated, its cost written off as a strategic learning experience. But the real victory came 6 months later when the first executive project came before our new oversight committee. The VP presenting looked nervous as we examined his budget, timeline, and contingency plans. This all looks solid, I said finally, but I have concerns about your staffing allocations. You've assigned junior team members to critical path tasks without senior support. He started to argue, then stopped, reconsidered. You're right. I'll restructure the assignments. Watching an executive actually listen, actually change course, felt better than any revenge fantasy I'd ever imagined. As for Vance, the last I heard he was struggling to land another executive role. Turns out companies are cautious about hiring someone with his kind of reputation. His LinkedIn still lists him as an executive consultant, but industry gossip says he's essentially unemployable at his former level. His precious beach house went on the market 3 months ago. I still feel flashes of anger when I think about what he put us through, but mostly I feel something unexpected: gratitude. His actions forced me to discover a strength I didn't know I had, to build alliances I never would have formed, to create lasting change instead of just surviving. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy, it's building something better from the ashes they left behind. People like Vance are so focused on protecting their power that they never see the real threat. People who care more about doing what's right than about winning. People who work together instead of tearing each other down. People who understand that real strength comes from lifting others up. Do I miss the person I was before all this? The quiet systems analyst who never caused trouble? Sometimes. That life was easier. But this one matters more. If you're watching this and facing your own Vance Mercer, someone who seems untouchable, wrapped in power and connections, remember this: no one is truly untouchable. Systems can change. Power can shift. The key is finding your people, the ones who will stand with you when it matters. And sometimes, The person you need to become to fight that battle is exactly who you were always meant to be. That's it. That's my story. If it resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know where you're watching from. And if you've ever stood up to someone who seemed too powerful to challenge, drop a comment below. Your story might help someone else find their courage. Because that's how change happens. One story, one person, one moment of courage at a time. And trust me, it's worth it. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard.